The stars were calm, shining like distant diamonds across the void. The human ship Artemis glided quietly through the outer sector of the Zorvian cluster. Elias, a human security officer, stood on the bridge, eyes scanning the control panels. His heart beat steadily, a rhythm of focus and discipline. Most humans would have considered this mission routine, a simple escort of an alien diplomatic vessel through neutral space. But Elias knew better. Space was never routine. Ahead, the royal convoy shimmered in the distance. At the center floated the Averin flagship, elegant and intimidating, its hull adorned with silver and sapphire filigree. Inside, the young Princess Liara rested, unaware that danger lurked just beyond the sensors. Elias had read the intelligence reports. Pirates were increasing their attacks along this corridor, striking anyone traveling with royalty. Elias, called Commander Varric, the Averin liaison, his voice sharp and impatient, "We are in clear space. Relax your sensors." Elias didn't respond immediately. His instincts screamed otherwise. Humans had a saying, "Trust your eyes, not your screens." He checked the outer sensors again. Movement, a cluster of small, fast ships, black as void, appeared on the radar. Pirates. "Commander," Elias said calmly, "we've got company. Fast approach, armed for destruction." Varric's eyes widened. "Impossible. We are in neutral space. Pirates cannot." Before he could finish, the pirate ship struck. Bright blasts tore through the emptiness, hammering the convoy. Shields flared, alarms screamed. The Averin guards scrambled, panic flashing in their multifaceted eyes. The princess's shuttle rocked violently. Elias didn't hesitate. He ran to the armor bay, grabbed a pulse rifle, and sprinted to the forward deck. He could see the princess's transport exposed, vulnerable. The human mind worked differently than the Averin-S. While they calculated odds, Elias only saw one truth: she would die if he didn't act. "Cover me," he shouted to no one. There was no one willing to follow him. The alien guards were frozen, unsure of what a single human could do. Elias leaped into the gunship, pushing it toward the pirates. He maneuvered through the enemy fire with fearless precision, weaving between blasts that would have torn apart any standard vessel. Inside the princess's shuttle, Liara screamed as a blast hit the outer hull. Panic gripped her chest. She had been trained for diplomacy, not combat. Her royal guards were unprepared. The shuttle's systems faltered. Then Elias appeared, not in words but in action. He positioned his gunship between the pirates and the princess, drawing enemy fire toward himself. Each blast shook his craft, sensors failing, hull cracking. But Elias kept going, maneuvering with impossible skill, firing back. "Human," one Averin guard yelled. "You cannot possibly survive this." Elias didn't reply. Survival wasn't the point, protecting her was. He felt every human emotion amplified in that moment: fear, determination, loyalty, all focused into a single, burning purpose. A pirate ship closed in fast. Elias adjusted his trajectory, aimed at the weak point in its hull, and fired. The ship exploded in a brilliant orange bloom. Debris floated in the zero-gravity void. Another pirate craft veered to attack, but Elias was ready. Every shot, every evasive maneuver was precise. He had no thought for his own life. His mind only registered the princess must live. Back on the shuttle, Liara watched in awe. She had heard stories of human courage, but nothing prepared her for this. The human in the black and silver gunship, weaving between explosions, firing at impossible angles, was willing to die for her. Her heart clenched with fear and gratitude. One of the larger pirate frigates fired a massive plasma beam. Elias had only seconds to react. He calculated, moved, and shielded the shuttle with the gunship itself, taking the full blast. The firestorm tore through his vessel, alarms shrieking. The metal groaned, systems failing. He gritted his teeth and held course. "Move," he shouted through comms, not that the princess could respond. The shuttle surged forward, shaken but intact. Elias bore the brunt of the attack. Hull plating peeled, sparks rained inside the cockpit, but still he pressed on. Finally, the royal fleet arrived. The main Averin battleships opened fire on the pirates, scattering them like frightened insects. One by one, the attackers were destroyed or fled. The calm of space returned, but the aftermath was devastating. Elia's gunship was barely functional, a skeleton of metal and wiring. He steered toward the Averin flagship and managed to dock, collapsing the moment he entered the ship. The princess ran to him, her small hands gripping his arm. You saved me," she whispered, voice trembling. Elias smiled faintly, blood staining his uniform. "You would have done the same for me," he said simply. Humans believed in action, not words. The commander Varric and the guards arrived, their faces pale. How did you survive that?" Varric asked, awe and disbelief in his tone. "No human could have." Elias ignored him. His focus was the princess. Liara's eyes were wide, filled with something that went beyond fear or gratitude, respect, trust. "Oh, you are injured," she said softly. "You should rest." "I've had worse," Elias replied. Human endurance was legendary for reasons alien species could not understand. Pain slowed them, but humans pushed through it. Survival was secondary to purpose. Medical personnel rushed in. Sensors scanned his body. Multiple fractures, burns, internal injuries. The readings were grim. The chief medic shook her head. "He should not be alive," she murmured. The princess stepped closer, ignoring protocol. "He is alive because he chose to protect me, and I owe him my life." Elias looked at her. For the first time, he allowed a flicker of emotion, humility, pride, and the simple truth. Humans fight for each other, not for glory. Commander Varric approached, a shadow of his previous arrogance. "He is remarkable," he admitted quietly. "Perhaps humans are stronger than we imagined." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "Stronger than you imagine," he corrected. But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of his injuries. Collapse was coming. He didn't fight it yet. He had done his duty. He had protected the princess. That was enough. The princess stood beside him, refusing to move. She would not leave. Her small hand rested on his arm. "You saved my life," she said firmly, "and I will not let you face the next danger alone." Elias chuckled weakly. Humans were simple in one way. They acted because they could, because they had to. Emotions were strength, not weakness. Alien cultures might never understand that. The Queen's ship was en route, responding to the distress call. The royal protocols would soon complicate everything. But in this moment, Elias and the princess shared a quiet understanding. A human had fought the impossible and survived, and the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. As the stars shimmered outside, Elias closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself to rest. The danger had passed, but he knew this was only the beginning. Pirates were not the only threat in a galaxy where humans were underestimated. For now, one truth remained clear. Humans were capable of things no alien could predict. Courage, loyalty, sacrifice, these were the weapons of humanity, and Elias had just proven them all. The princess's eyes stayed on him, a silent promise forming. One day, the universe would remember this human. One day, humans would rise as more than mere soldiers. But that day was not today. Today, Elias had done his job. Today, a human had fought the impossible and survived. And for the first time in her young life, Princess Liara knew exactly what humans were truly capable of. The Averin royal flagship drifted through the stars, a jewel of silver and sapphire in the blackness of space. Inside, the corridors were quiet, almost eerily so. Princess Liara walked beside the human, Elias, who was being guided carefully on a hover stretcher by medical personnel. His wounds were severe, but his expression remained calm. Humans, as the aliens would soon discover, did not succumb to pain easily. Pain was an obstacle, not a limit. Princess Liara could not stop looking at him. His uniform was torn, burnt, and blood-stained. Sparks clung to his hair, but he moved with an ease that seemed impossible. The young princess had grown up surrounded by warriors, yet none of them had faced danger with the same raw courage she had just witnessed. Her heart swelled with a mix of fear and admiration. "You should rest," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias offered a faint smile. "I've rested before. I'll rest again when the galaxy isn't at risk." Liara's small hands clenched. "You don't understand. You could have died. You risked everything for me." Elias shrugged, though it was a weak gesture. "I protect. It's what humans do. It doesn't matter who. It matters that someone survives." The princess looked at him, astonished. Humans were so different from the Avarin. Here, logic ruled every decision. Sacrifice was calculated. Humans, this human, acted without thought of self. Her mind tried to comprehend it, but she could not. By the time they reached the Royal Medical Wing, the situation had drawn attention. The Queen herself was already present, her regal form framed by the doorway. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, fell on Elias immediately. "You are the human who protected my daughter," she said, voice low and precise. There was no emotion in it, only command. Elias lifted his head, meeting her gaze. "I am." The Queen's eyes narrowed. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability in her experience was dangerous. She had studied human history through the galaxy's archives. They were fragile, short-lived, reckless, and yet somehow this one had stood in the face of death, shielding a royal Avarin. "You chose to risk death," she stated, more than asked. "Yes," Elias replied simply. "She is alive because I was willing to fight." A murmur ran through the room. The Avarin court advisors, skilled in diplomacy and calculation, were stunned. No Avarin had ever acted so recklessly. To them, risking life without purpose was madness, but to Elias it was instinct. A human-s instinct. The Queen studied him carefully. "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Elias said. "Because if I didn't, she would be dead, and that is not acceptable to me." The Queen paused. No Avarin could have answered that way. No one in the galaxy would. Humans were strange creatures. Their strength was not in weapons or shields, but in choices, in loyalty, in the courage to act when the odds were impossible. Medical scans ran over Elias, revealing the full extent of his injuries. Multiple fractures, burns across his torso, internal bleeding. He should not have survived the pirate assault. The chief medic shook her head in disbelief. "His endurance, it's beyond human standards," she said quietly. The Queen raised an eyebrow. "Yet he is still conscious." "Yes, Your Majesty," the medic answered. "He has been through trauma that would kill any normal human, yet he remains aware. I have never seen anything like it." Liara stepped closer, placing a hand on Elias' arm. "See, you are extraordinary," she said softly. Her eyes shone. "You risked yourself for me. You didn't even hesitate." Elias looked at her, his own eyes tired but steady. "I didn't hesitate because hesitation would have killed you." The Queen's gaze sharpened. "Humans, they are far more dangerous than I imagined." Her words were not a compliment. They were a calculation. Dangerous because unpredictable. Dangerous because they made choices without regard for survival. Dangerous because they could not be controlled. For the princess, the moment was overwhelming. She had grown up in a culture of strict rules and careful plans. And yet here was a human, a creature from another world who had ignored every calculation and acted purely on instinct. She realized with a deep, sudden clarity that humans were not weak. Humans were something else entirely. "You will recover," the Queen said finally, her voice softer than before, though still measured. "But you will not leave this ship until I am certain your loyalty is not a threat." Elias' brow furrowed. "I don't understand, Your Majesty. I'm not a threat. I just did my duty." "And yet," the Queen said slowly, pacing in front of him, "your actions have already shifted perceptions. Across the galaxy, news of your defense is spreading. Every species that learns of this human will question their assumptions. Some may see it as strength. Others may see it as danger, and I must consider the consequences." Liara looked up at her mother, anger flashing in her young eyes. "He saved me. How can you treat him as a prisoner?" "He is not a prisoner," the queen replied firmly. "But he is not free either. Humans are unpredictable, and the galaxy is not ready for unpredictability of this magnitude." Elias sighed. He had faced death once today. He would face politics now. Humans were resilient, yes, but even they could feel the weight of responsibility. For hours, he lay in the medical chamber as the princess remained by his side. They spoke quietly, sharing stories of their worlds, of battles fought and survived, of fear faced and conquered. Liara learned that humans had a strange code: loyalty above logic, courage above survival. She had never understood it before, but seeing it with her own eyes changed her perspective entirely. Later, when the queen returned, Elias was sitting upright, though his body still ached. She watched him carefully, noting the steadiness of his posture, the calm in his eyes despite everything he had endured. "You heal faster than expected," she said, almost as a statement to herself. "I do what I must," Elias replied simply. "You have changed something fundamental," the queen said, her tone softer now. "Your actions, they force me to reconsider humanity's place in the galaxy. They force me to reconsider what a single human can achieve." Liara's hand found Elia's S again. "See, I told you. Humans are more than anyone thinks." The queen's gaze flickered to the young princess, who looked at Elias with a mixture of awe and determination. "You speak with admiration," the queen noted. "But understand this: humans are not fully understood. They are wild, unpredictable, and sometimes reckless. Your daughter's life was at stake, and yet you let a human approach her." Liara's small voice was firm. "Yes, because he is the only one who truly protected me. He is not reckless, he is brave." Elias met the queen's eyes. "I don't need approval," he said quietly. "I only needed to do the right thing." The queen stared at him, her mind calculating, weighing, considering. In human history, she read of countless acts of sacrifice, loyalty, and courage. Yet none had ever seemed so raw, so immediate, so undeniable. "You will remain here until I understand the full implications of your actions," the queen said finally. "Not as a prisoner, but as something else. You have shown qualities that are rare across all species. Qualities that may change the course of the galaxy." Elias nodded. He had expected nothing less. Humans rarely sought recognition. They acted because they could. They protected because they must. And sometimes the galaxy did not understand the cost of courage. That evening, as stars glimmered outside the viewport, Liara sat beside him, her small hand resting gently on his arm. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. "Why risk everything for me?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because someone had to, because if I didn't, I would not be human. Humans survive not because they are strong, but because they fight for others, and I fought for you." Liara's eyes shone with understanding. "I will remember this always," she whispered. Elias allowed himself a small moment of quiet. Pain still lingered, but humans endured. He had faced the impossible once, and he would face it again if necessary. As the queen observed from afar, her expression softened slightly. Perhaps humans were dangerous not for their strength, not for their weapons, but for their choices. One human had already shifted the perception of an entire species, and the galaxy would take notice. The night passed, and the first rays of alien suns filtered through the viewport. Elias remained beside the princess, a silent guardian. The queen had yet to make her final decision, yet one truth was already clear. A human's loyalty was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And that loyalty was not something that could be ignored. The galaxy had never known a human like Elias. News of his actions spread faster than the light of distant stars. Across star systems, whispers reached the ears of soldiers, diplomats, and spies alike. A human protected the Avarin princess, alone. It was repeated in disbelief, in awe, and in fear. Elias, however, remained in the royal flagship, recovering slowly from his injuries. The medical team had stabilized him, but his body still ached, and the burns on his torso were raw reminders of the pirate attack. Yet, despite everything, his mind was alert. Humans healed quickly, but more importantly, they never lost sight of their purpose. Princess Liara spent almost every moment at his side. She had insisted on learning from him, observing how he remained calm despite pain, despite fear. To her, he was no longer just a protector, he was a living symbol of courage. The queen watched them both closely, her interest growing daily. Humans were dangerous in a way the galaxy had not anticipated. They were not the strongest species physically. They did not wield exotic energy weapons or command fleets of thousands. Yet their strength lay elsewhere. Their will, their loyalty, their willingness to risk everything for another being. These qualities were terrifying in their unpredictability. "You underestimate humans," the queen said one evening, her voice echoing through the chamber. She addressed her advisors, but her eyes were on Elias. One of her senior generals, a stoic Avarin named Krell, frowned. "Your Majesty, humans are fragile. They cannot survive harsh conditions. Their ships are weak, their numbers small, they are expendable." The queen shook her head slowly. "You do not understand. One human has already defied death, defended the princess alone, and survived. That human is not expendable. That human is influential, and influence is more dangerous than fleets of warships." Elias, lying in a medical chair, lifted his head at the word. He did not seek influence, nor did he care for power. But humans rarely acted for themselves, they acted for others. That was their true strength. In the corridors outside, whispers of his deeds had reached the Avarin court. Other species, hearing the story of a single human standing against death to protect royalty, began to question their own warriors' abilities. "If a human can do that," they murmured, "what can they do if cornered?" Word of Elias' courage reached the pirate networks as well. The same marauders who had attacked the convoy were now wary. Their new calculations began with fear. Humans are unpredictable. Humans do not retreat. Humans do not fear death. The queen understood now that humans were more than fragile creatures. They were catalysts. One human could alter perception, could shift power, could force respect where none had existed. And Elias was the embodiment of that potential. Princess Liara studied him wide-eyed. "You changed how the galaxy sees us, how they see me," she said one evening, voice trembling. "And yet you don't even want recognition." Elias shook his head. "Recognition is irrelevant. Survival is irrelevant. What matters is protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Liara's admiration deepened. Her young mind struggled to reconcile the logic of the Avarin with the instinct of humans. Here was a man who had no strategy beyond doing what was right, yet somehow he had succeeded where fleets and armies had failed. Meanwhile, spies from neighboring empires began to observe the Avarin flagship with unusual interest. Reports reached the queen of agents infiltrating her fleets, attempting to understand the human. Some sought to eliminate him before his influence spread further. Others simply watched, waiting to learn the secret of his courage. Elias remained unaware of much of this. His world was small, the princess, the queen, and the hospital room. But the weight of his actions had already extended far beyond those walls. One morning the queen called Elias to the council chamber. He moved slowly, still recovering, yet his posture remained unbroken. Humans were like that, endured pain silently, facing it as a part of life. "You have changed everything," the queen said, her voice measured. "Your actions have caused the galaxy to reconsider its assumptions about your species. They see humans as more than they believed. And that is dangerous." Elias raised an eyebrow. "I only did what needed to be done. I never asked to change anything." "Perhaps you underestimate yourself," the queen said. "One human has now become a symbol of courage across star systems. Your survival, your loyalty, your willingness to risk everything for another, it is unprecedented." Elias looked away, uncomfortable with praise. Humans rarely sought glory. They acted because they could, because someone needed help, because morality demanded it. Fame and influence were irrelevant, yet the queen's words carried weight. She understood what many others did not. One human could shift power without a single fleet, without a single battle. The princess, standing beside him, placed her hand on his arm. "Do you know what this means?" she asked quietly. "They will look to you, they will follow your example." Elias smiled faintly. "If they learn anything, let it be that courage is not in weapons. Courage is in the choice to act, no matter the odds." But the universe rarely allowed peace for long. Days later, a subtle alarm rippled through the flagship. Sensors detected an approaching vessel, cloaked and fast. Intelligence confirmed the worst. An assassination team had tracked the human. They aimed to eliminate the symbol before his influence could grow. Elias felt no fear. Humans did not fear death in the same way as other species. Fear existed, yes, but it was a tool, not a chain. He did not flinch as the command center lit up with warnings. Princess Liara's voice trembled. "Elias, they want to kill you." "I know," he said calmly. "They are late. I have already faced death once today. I can do it again if necessary." The queen herself watched from the council chamber, her expression unreadable. Humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable. And here was a human facing annihilation with a calmness that defied reason. The cloaked vessel decloaked, revealing a swarm of sleek black fighters. They attacked without warning, plasma blasts tearing through the void. Elias did not hesitate. He grabbed a defensive gunship, piloted it through the chaos, and intercepted the attackers. The flagship shuddered as weapons fired, but Elias' maneuvers were precise. He targeted enemy weak points with calculated aggression, dodging blasts that would have destroyed any other pilot. He moved faster, reacted faster, and yet every action was to protect the princess. One of the attackers launched a direct missile at her shuttle. Without thought, Elias steered his gunship in front, absorbing the explosion himself. Sparks rained down, alarms screamed, and the shuttle was safe. Princess Liara's eyes filled with tears. "You can't keep risking yourself like this," she shouted. Elias looked at her, voice calm despite the chaos. "I am not risking, I am acting. Acting is what humans do, and sometimes it saves lives." The queen, observing from the council chamber, was now visibly shaken. The strength of humans could not be measured in numbers or weapons. It was measured in willpower, in loyalty, in courage. One human had already changed how the galaxy viewed an entire species. And now, the human was again demonstrating it with raw, undeniable force. The attackers finally retreated, their numbers broken, their plan failed. The princess rushed to Elias as he staggered from his gunship, injuries mounting. She held him steady. You survived again," she whispered. "I always survive," Elias said quietly. "Humans do." That night the queen summoned her advisors. "Do you see now?" she asked. "One human has already shifted the balance. His courage, his loyalty, it inspires, it terrifies, and it changes everything. He is no longer just an individual, he is a symbol." Krell, the general, nodded slowly. "Yes, your majesty, but a symbol can also be a liability. Enemies will target him. Entire fleets may act against him, seeking to erase the threat before it grows. And that is why he must remain here," the queen said firmly. "Not as a prisoner, but as a guardian, a representative, a reminder." The galaxy underestimates humans at its peril. Elias, exhausted, sat beside the princess. "Why are they afraid of humans?" she asked quietly. "Because," he said softly, looking at the stars beyond, "humans fight for what matters. We do not calculate our choices for safety. We act for others, and the galaxy cannot control that." Liara understood immediately. Her young mind finally grasped the depth of humanity's strength. It was not in fleets or technology. It was in the willingness to stand, to fight, to endure, even when all odds were against you. And Elias had proven it. The queen's gaze lingered on him from afar, contemplative. Perhaps humans were not to be ruled. Perhaps humans were to be respected, even feared. One man had already begun the work of changing centuries of galactic assumptions. And the universe would never see humans the same way again. The Averin flagship glided silently through the starlit void. Within its corridors, the weight of anticipation was almost tangible. Elias sat in the medical wing, still recovering from injuries that would have killed any other human or alien. Princess Liara sat beside him, her small hand resting gently on his arm. Despite the calm exterior of the ship, tension simmered beneath the surface. The Queen's arrival was announced with a solemn echo through the corridors. Her presence filled the room immediately. Regal, composed and commanding, she stopped just a few paces from Elias, her piercing eyes studying him as though she could read the depths of his soul. "You have endured much," she said, voice steady but carrying the weight of authority. "And yet the galaxy continues to test you." Elias met her gaze without flinching. "I endure because it is necessary," he replied simply. "Humans did not seek recognition. They acted because it was right, because someone had to." The Queen stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "You have proven loyalty beyond reason, courage beyond expectation, and resilience that defies understanding. You are dangerous, Elias." "I don't seek danger," Elias said quietly. "I only act when necessary. My choices are not about fear or power, they are about protecting others." For the Queen, those words were both alarming and enlightening. She had ruled with logic and careful planning for centuries. Her species valued strength, calculation, and control. But humans were wild forces of nature. One human had already altered the perception of her entire empire. One human could change the galaxy with nothing but willpower. "You are a symbol," she said finally. "Not because you want to be, but because you cannot help being human. Your choices inspire, terrify, and command respect. The galaxy will never view humans the same way again." Princess Liara squeezed Elias' hand, her eyes shining. "See, you've done it again. You've changed everything, and they can't take that away from you." Elias shook his head gently. "I do not seek to change the galaxy. I only do what is right. That is all a human can do." The Queen's gaze softened slightly, but her mind remained sharp. One human could inspire courage across star systems. One human could become a unifying force or a dangerous wild card. She had already seen how the galaxy reacted to Elia's actions. Other species were cautious, fearful. Diplomats and spies studied him, trying to understand the nature of his courage. They did not realize that courage could not be studied or contained. "Your presence here cannot be ignored," the Queen continued. "Enemies see you as a threat, allies see you as hope. And I must decide what role you will play moving forward." Elias did not respond immediately. He had faced death countless times in his life, and even now, with every wound still raw, he understood the weight of her words. Humans acted for others, not for themselves. And now, the universe depended on him, not because he wanted it, but because he had proven humans were unlike any other species. A sudden alarm blared through the ship. Sensors detected multiple unknown ships approaching at high speed. The Queen's Council erupted into activity, preparing for a potential attack. The enemy had discovered Elias' location and intended to eliminate the symbol before it could grow further. Elias rose slowly, wincing at the pain in his body, but determination lit his eyes. Humans did not hesitate when others were in danger. He grabbed a tactical comm, coordinating with the Averin fleet to prepare defenses. Every move was precise, every order clear. Humans acted with instinct and intelligence, blending courage with strategy naturally. Princess Liara followed him, insisting she remain close. "You cannot do this alone," she said. "I am not alone," Elias replied quietly, though his eyes were fixed on the approaching threat. "I am with those who need me." The battle began in earnest. Plasma beams tore across space as the enemy ships attacked with deadly precision. Elias piloted his gunship through the chaos, intercepting enemy fire, shielding the princess's vessel, and striking at weak points with pinpoint accuracy. Sparks flew, explosions shook nearby ships, and alarms blared incessantly. Through it all, the Queen observed silently from the flagship. Humans were terrifying. They were fearless, unpredictable, and entirely devoted to protecting others. One human's courage had already shifted perception. One human's actions in the battlefield could influence entire star systems, and Elias had just proven it again. Hours passed. The enemy fleet was destroyed, scattered by the combined efforts of Elias and the Avarin forces. The princess's shuttle remained unharmed, and for the first time the Queen allowed herself a moment of awe. Elias had done what no one else could. He had acted without fear, without hesitation, and without regard for his own survival. When the dust settled, Elias returned to the flagship, battered but alive. Princess Liara ran to him, throwing her arms around him. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us all again." Elias smiled weakly, pain evident but determination unwavering. "I did what had to be done." Humans do not consider risk when others' lives are at stake. The Queen stepped forward, her eyes studying him deeply. "Elias, you have changed more than you realize. You are no longer just a human. You are a symbol of courage and loyalty. Your presence affects the galaxy in ways few can comprehend, and that is why you cannot leave." Elias blinked. "I do not understand. I am not a prisoner. I am not seeking power. I only wish to return home when my duty is complete." "Your duty is not just to the princess, Elias," the Queen said firmly. "Your duty is to the galaxy. Your actions inspire hope, unite allies, and deter enemies. A human who can act as you do cannot simply leave. The universe has already begun to depend on you." The princess's eyes widened in surprise, but she nodded slowly. She understood. Humans acted for what was right, and now the right thing was to stay and serve a greater purpose. Elias swallowed hard. He had faced death countless times, yet this new reality was heavier than any physical wound. Humans were adaptable, but the weight of responsibility pressed on his shoulders. He looked out at the stars, the endless expanse of space stretching before him. Humans thrived in adversity, but they also thrived in purpose, and now his purpose was greater than he had ever imagined. "Then I will stay," he said quietly. "Not because I am forced, but because it is necessary. Humans do not abandon what must be protected." The Queen's expression softened slightly, though she remained resolute. "Very well, Elias. You will remain as the guardian of the crown, not a prisoner, not a soldier, but a living symbol. Your presence will shape alliances, deter enemies, and inspire hope across star systems. You will act when needed, and you will stand as a reminder that humans are unlike any other species." Elias nodded. He did not seek recognition, but humans understood duty. To protect, to serve, to act when needed, this was what he was born to do. Princess Liara squeezed his hand. "I am proud of you," she whispered. "Not just because you saved me, but because you are human." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans are simple in one way, we act for others. That is our greatest strength, and I will continue to act for as long as it is necessary." The Queen turned to her council, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Let it be known throughout the galaxy. One human has proven that courage, loyalty, and sacrifice cannot be measured by species. This human, Elias, shall remain with us as a guardian and a symbol. Let all who witness his actions understand the truth. Humans are a force to be respected, feared, and admired." The announcement spread like wildfire. Across countless star systems, reports reached every corner of the galaxy. A human had stood against impossible odds, protected royalty, and survived. One human had become a symbol of courage, endurance, and loyalty. Elias did not seek fame. He did not seek power. He acted because it was right. And now the universe knew the truth. Humans were unpredictable, fearless, and capable of deeds no other species could imagine. As he stood on the flagship's observation deck beside Princess Liara, watching the stars stretch into infinity, he felt a quiet resolve. The galaxy had its eyes on him now. And humans never failed those who needed them. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. You may leave when the universe no longer needs heroes. But today, the universe still needed humans, and Elia's would remain. Because humans fight not for glory, not for power, but for what is right. And that, the galaxy now understood, was a force stronger than any weapon. The stars shimmered, distant and eternal, as a human stood beside an alien princess, ready to protect, ready to inspire, and ready to change the galaxy forever.